When the sun comes up on America, across open fields, small towns, and city streets, a new day begins. And here, we rise with it. This is where hard work meets headlines, where truth matters, and America wakes up informed.
An interesting week.
They all are.
This is your country. This is your morning. This is Daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. America, let's do it together.
Love you, Ivy.
Love you too.
And it starts right now.
All right, let's get rolling. 3 big things to cover to start your day here today as we fight for you from the foxhole of freedom. Number 1, President Trump has formally nominated Todd Blanche to be Attorney General, which sets up a major confirmation war because only one Democrat will vote to support him, John Fetterman. The rest will just do political, performative art. Number 2, President Trump still pushing for the Save America Act and calling on John Thune to fire the parliamentarian for obstructing progress. Thune says no. And number 3, today's the day. The day the Democrats in Maine decide whether or not they want to be represented by a man with a Nazi Totenkopf. That's a tattoo he had associated with concentration camp guards, a man whose former girlfriend say verbal and physical abuse was common, a man who sent sexually explicit images and messages to dozens of women while married, and being on platforms associated with child grooming and sexual exploitation. Today is Judgment Day for Graham Plattner and for the Democrat Party as a whole. And I think it will prove what we already know to be true about Democrats. It's rules for thee, not for me, with these people. For the last 10 years, we've heard Trump's critics on the left side of the aisle moan and wail about his threat to democracy as the second coming of Adolf Hitler. They've decried him as a Nazi scumbag and haven't stopped. Here, how about just a refresher on all the terrible things that they've said? This is just a small bit. Here it is.
Donald Trump is also very old and a racist and a neo-Nazi.
Just to follow up on that question, do you personally see parallels between Nazi Germany and what's happening under the Trump administration?
Yeah, I do. It is deeply concerning.
What I know is in the early days of the Nazi regime, they started slowly but surely taking away people's rights. And what we're seeing now is the very same thing.
Unless you forget, all it took was a heartfelt wave to a crowd that had Jamal Bowman, former member of Congress, and others calling Elon Musk a Nazi just last year. Remember this?
The American people do not trust Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is incompetent in his position. He's incompetent, he's a thief, he's a Nazi, and people don't trust him. Period.
Let me just make a point, okay?
A Nazi. That's just been their go-to. Democrats and their lapdogs in the media have bent themselves over backwards to draw comparisons between the right and fascism and Nazism, and now they're willing to promote and stand behind a guy who has an actual, literal Nazi tattoo. Not just any tattoo. The tattoo worn by the most brutal and ruthless of Nazi concentration camp guards. Democrat strategist James Carville literally admits out loud that his party would not be near as forgiving if Plattner were a Republican. Of course not. They'd crucify him. Here's Jimmy Carville.
But what would you say to a Republican who says, James, if there was a Republican combat veteran who had a Nazi tattoo, a Totenkopf tattoo, you wouldn't be so forgiving? What would you say to that?
That's true. I would say you're exactly right. If that person was a 4-time combat veteran, I'd say I'd never vote for him, or maybe it's her now. We have women in combat. But you can't. But I wouldn't vote. I wouldn't vote for. I think the greatest danger we face right now is from Donald Trump.
Yeah, there you go. No shame, none. And Plattner has lied about the tattoo, claiming he didn't know what it was until he started campaigning. Yet, at least one of his former girlfriends says he used to brag about the tattoo and its Nazi significance when they were dating. My Totenkopf, he called it. But those aren't even the worst of the accusations coming from former girlfriends who don't want to see their psychotic ex in government. Many have described his behavior as toxic, unsettling, and characterized by excessive drinking, demeaning behavior, and infidelity. Several of them said they were left shaken by incidents where Plattner would roughly grab or yank their arms or shoulders, lock them in rooms. This isn't behavior that anyone should be excusing, but all of a sudden, Democrats like Ro Khanna are willing to split hairs on what's permissible and what's not and look the other way because they have a chance of gaining a seat in the Senate. Here it is.
View, there's nothing credible at this point?
My view is that even according to the New York Times piece, they said there was no harm, no injury. There was toxicity, and there was verbal intimidation, which I condemn. But Graham has made it clear that there was no evidence of violence. That, to me, is a red line.
You know, they'll condemn it to a point, but not to the point of saying, hey, he's disqualified, because he is. By the way, it's the same Ro Khanna who lacked even a shred of self-awareness when he made these comments while campaigning for Plattner. Here's more.
Now, no one should make excuses for his past relationships, some of which were toxic and volatile, and no one on our side should attack the women who came forward. You know why? Because Democrats believe in respecting the equality and the dignity of women, and we always will.
Oh, my Lord.
And we reject, unequivocally, misogyny. We reject it. But you know who else rejects it? Graham Plattner.
Sure he does. Some of the most blatant examples of talking out both sides of your mouth that I have ever seen. The kind of mental gymnastics that this party is having to perform to platform this guy is incredible. And in case this point has been lost on everyone, the DNC has chosen Graham Plattner as their golden goose over the governor of Maine. A woman who they could have rallied behind in their mission for identity politics. But they chose this guy instead, and are fine with revealing that they're willing to put up with just about any kind of behavior if they think it might give them an advantage, ever. And, of course, they're blaming Trump for their standards, which is just so predictable. Senator Mark Warner, another discredited stooge, has told reporters that Graham Plattner's behavior would probably have taken him out of the running in earlier decades, but that President Trump lowered the bar for candidates' personal conduct. You know, give me a break. Do these people think we're just going to forget Bill Clinton? This isn't a new play by Democrats. They stood by Clinton even when a woman gave a televised interview claiming forcible rape by the president. In fact, Al Gore told people to just move on after they aired that interview. They still invite Bill Clinton to DNC events. How? I don't know. Democrats don't have a moral leg to stand on, but they're going to keep pretending they do because their voters eat it up, apparently. Enough of them. These are the kinds of people who will vote for Plattner today, people who stopped making any sense a long time ago. Listen.
Totem Pope tattoo, the Nazi tattoo. How do you kind of...
Somebody said that they talked to somebody who had seen one of those or wore one of those, and it was silver, and it didn't even occur to him that it was the same thing. I think people are making as much of it as they can because they don't have a lot of substance around anything else. And if they did, we'd hear about it, believe me. They are trolling for dirt.
What if he has like a Israeli flag tattoo or something? Would that be a deal breaker?
For me?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
That would be
Israeli.
So, Nazi tattoo, good. Israeli flag tattoo, that's a disqualifier. Back after this. So I just want to be clear about this. These folks you've been hearing from claim they don't support genocide, but they support candidates whose tattoo was used by sycophants who carried out genocide. So that's okay. You're marked with a Totenkopf of Nazi guards. Make it make sense. Oh, it does. They just want power. Here's the thing. For someone trying to bury any accusations of being a Nazi sympathizer, Plattner isn't doing a very good job, by the way. Not when he claims that Senator John Fetterman is only criticizing him because he's a stooge for Jewish donors, and not when he campaigns on promises to take over elections and jail his political opponents. Yep, here it is.
If I had my way, elections would last 2 months. They would be publicly funded, and if a billionaire looked at a TV ad the wrong way, we'd put him in jail.
Yeah, that is right out of the Nazi playbook, dude. I guess the tattoo fits. And just when you thought the hypocrisy couldn't get any worse, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the self-appointed watchdog group that has been completely decimated by scandal, that loves labeling everyone out to the right of Bernie Sanders a dangerous extremist, now making headlines tied to this whole mess. While the SPLC has spent decades raking in hundreds of millions of fear-mongering over hate groups and slapping Nazi labels on conservatives, they've stayed strangely quiet, or worse, as Democrats rally behind a guy with an actual Totenkopf tattoo on his chest. And now the DOJ is indicting the left-wing foundation for fraud, money laundering, and funneling donor money into questionable activities, to say the least. What kind of questionable activities, you ask? Well, if you haven't heard, the SPLC funneled more than $4 million in donor funds to groups like the Ku Klux Klan. They helped actual white supremacist groups fund their rallies, expand their chapters, and buy materials for things like uniforms and cross burnings. Yeah, you heard me right. Remember that Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville that Democrats use as anti-Trump fodder to this day? Yeah, all funded by the SPLC. The hoax never ends. Just a few months ago, Jamie Raskin used his time on Capitol Hill to laud the SPLC as a critical partner in fighting white supremacy. Yeah, he did. Here he is.
The Southern Poverty Law Center has been a vigilant voice in civil society against radical white nationalist violence and extremism, neo-Nazism, and other forces across the political spectrum that spread organized hate from any quarter. The president, however, wants to undermine civil society organizations and to reduce our ability to defend ourselves against the virus of racial violence.
Yeah, that aged like old milk, didn't it? Now we know that the SPLC was creating the disease so they could sell the cure. A tale as old as time, and one we've always been warning about, but we're called conspiracy theorists for it. But the DOJ, under Attorney General Todd Blanche's leadership, is exposing the racket for what it really is and setting the record straight for the mainstream media. Listen.
I just want to make sure I understand. You're alleging that the Southern Poverty Law Center was paying the leaders of KKK and other groups to continue their operations? Is that?
I'm not alleging it. The grand jury returned an indictment that says that.
Yeah, the grand jury returned an indictment that says exactly that. The gig is up. The SPLC has been exposed, and now, today, will the Democrats expose themselves even further as blatant hypocrites? After years of calling Christians and conservatives Nazis, will they rally behind an actual one? Power, no principles, has always been their true north, and I think we'll discover that today. And something else about Graham Plattner that has popped up that you should know about. It's not just the Nazi stuff. It's not just being that P. Hustle is on the Kick app where the age group primarily is 13 to 24. A pickup app, a hookup app. 13 to 24. Now we learn he's been trying to sell himself as an oyster farmer, but strangely enough, his oyster farm being registered as a business didn't appear until after he entered the race for U.S. Senate. Unbelievable. Oh, and by the way, his oyster farming, making life on the water, well, It made less than $5,000 last year. Less than $5,000. And by the way, the only client was his mom. His only client was his mom. It's some restaurant she runs, apparently. His home that he says he pays on, $200,000 gift from a friend to help pay for it. You know, it just goes on and on and on. Maine's going to elect this guy today to be the Democrat standard bearer for the U.S. Senate. Susan Collins will win because she always does and because she's not a bottom feeder like this guy. All right, and that's the monologue. For 250 years, the promise of America has been the freedom to build something of your own, and for millions of families, that dream begins with owning a home. But in the blink of an eye, that American dream can turn to a nightmare. With just some public information and a forged signature, criminals can legally transfer your home into their name. And getting it back, months, maybe years involved, thousands, tens of thousands of legal fees just to reclaim what is already yours. That's why we trust the experts at Home Title Lock. With 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and a 100% fraud restoration success rate, they fight for property owners and their loved ones against this growing crime. And to celebrate America's 250th birthday, they're giving our audience 25% off up to 2 years in title fraud protection. That's over $100 in savings and peace of mind. Plus, a free title history report to ensure you're not already a victim. Use my promo code Gruber25. Gruber25 at Home Title Lock right now. Get protected today. HometitleLock.com. Promo code Gruber25. Best deal you're going to get. All right? HometitleLock.com. Gruber25. All right, good stuff. We'll take a break. We'll continue on. Nice to see you on a Tuesday. Back after this. All right. Speaking of mortgages, the average mortgage now is over $2,000 a month. Average. U.S. households being financially squeezed at a level that we have not seen before, that's for sure. For the first time in U.S. history, the average monthly mortgage payment now exceeds $2,000. Homeowners faced a sticker shock at the end of 25. The average is $2,005. That's a 44% surge since 2021 when it took off. Who was in the White House in 2021? Do remind me. I don't remember. 2021. Let's see. Oh, he doesn't remember either. It's okay. Joey needs to go to the potty. Okay, Joe. Let's not go potty in your pants. Yeah. Inflation, terrible policies, assaults on energy, open borders, all of it. It came in 2021 in spades. And today we're still paying the price for it. Homeowners are paying the price for it. There it is. Fact. Here's another fact for you. I slept great last night. Man, I'm telling you, I brag about this all the time, but I slept great. I got a crown on my Oura ring last night. Don't have to be in bed very long. As long as you sleep really well, you can sleep a shorter period of time and still come out refreshed. But summer heat creates bad sleep for a lot of folks because their mattress traps heat. If you already sleep hot, summer only makes it worse. That's why I switched to Ghost Bed in part. Keeps you cool all night. No waking up sweating, no tossing and turning, throwing off the covers at 2 in the morning. Cooling tech built into every mattress. It's not some expensive upgrade you have to pay extra for. It's there. Hot sleepers are some of the Ghost Bed's happiest customers. I want to hear from you. And you can try this for 101 days. 101 days. Less stiffness, deeper sleep, better mornings. I love it. 101 nights, and if you don't like it, call them up. They'll pick it up at your house and take it away. I don't think you will, but there you are. And by the way, Ghost Bed offering an extra 10% off to you today. With financing, some Ghost Beds come out to around $1 a day. Go to ghostbed.com. Promo code's Gruber. Ghostbed.com/Gruber. Promo code Gruber. You're going to have the best price ever and the best sleep ever, and I want you to send me an email. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back to it. Today is the day that voters, Democrats in Maine, are going to select an actual Nazi, a guy with a Totenkopf tattoo, a history of abusing women. Apparently, old P. Hustle, as John Fetterman calls him, because that was his name on Kick, also solicits, favors from who knows who. The average age on that Kick hookup act is 13 to 24. That's the average age, 13. Yeah, you heard me right. Hans von Spakovsky here with me, an election attorney, senior legal fellow at the Advancing America Freedom. Hans, nice to see you today. We'll get to California where they keep counting votes, but first I got to get you to weigh in. On Plattner, Graham Plattner, he's going to get the nod from Democrats today in the state of Maine. How bad is the Democrat Party when a guy with a Nazi tattoo, a history of abusing women, a guy who's on a hookup app that's got an average age of 13 to 24, something is deeply wrong. Even on CNN, they're saying, man, we've got a problem here. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and add his anti-Semitism to it. I mean, his latest talking about jailing billionaires, he sounds like a candidate in 1932 in Germany. Yeah. And of course, that was the year Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist Party took control of the country. I mean, that is how bad he is. I don't compare a lot of people to the Nazis in Germany in the 30s. It's been done too often, of course, with Donald Trump, and it's totally untrue. But this guy actually, it is an apt comparison. And if he gets elected, I tell you, it really shows just how, frankly, un-American and radical the Democratic Party has become. And they are now becoming a danger to this country, the future of our freedom and liberties.
He's not the only one that's on the fringe here, Hans.
Right.
You've got Abdul El Sayed, anti-Semitic, in Michigan, leading in the polls to be their Democrat candidate for Senate. We'll find out in August on that one. Of course, you got James Tallarico. He's already on the ballot in Texas as the Democrat running for Senate. I mean, I guess I applaud the Democrats for finding the worst possible candidates. It's something the Republicans normally do. They go out and find a really terrible candidate and shove them through. Not like this, though. This is different.
No.
This. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is ideological. Look, this is a great country. We're celebrating 250 years, but there have been some very ugly periods in our history. You think of the KKK and lynchings in the South. You think about some of the severe anti-Semitism, anti-Catholic movements at points in our history. This is another rise of individuals who push those kind of horrible, immoral, and frankly, uncivil and violent ideas. And I'm telling you, this is extremely dangerous. It's one thing to have candidates like this speaking up. It's quite another when they are actually elected and voted into office. And I fear for the future of the country.
I agree with you on that. If this guy would happen to beat Susan Collins, which, by the way, I don't think he will. Susan Collins is, not exactly a conservative. No. But she's helped usher in great members of the United States Supreme Court. And she's the best you're going to get out of the state of Maine, because but for Susan Collins, this guy would get elected automatically. But for Susan Collins, who has the strongest ground game, works harder than anybody else, is in her state all the time. And they keep telling us election after election, she's down by 10 points, she's going to lose. That was the narrative last time. She won by 9. Down by 10, won by 9. And this happens every cycle. I expect her to win again. Your thoughts?
Oh, look, she is one of the best campaigners, and frankly has a terrific office that helps her constituents. That's why she constantly comes from behind and wins. If she loses in the general election, it will be one of the worst reflections on the residents of Maine also. And again, will be a real problem in the United States Senate.
Yeah. All right, let's switch to California. Talk about the worst of the worst. Still counting ballots. Yeah. It's a week now. Spencer Pratt has fallen from second place to third. He's out of the run for mayor of Los Angeles. Does Steve Hilton hold on, or do they game him out of the system too?
Well, remember, they've been counting for a week. They'll continue to count for several weeks because the rules that they have set up for elections there are probably the worst in the country. But by the way, all pushed by these liberal academic professors, and we now see the results of that. There basically is no security in the election process there. There's nothing really to prevent fake registrations. There's nothing to prevent aliens from registering and voting. And the entire absentee or mail-in balloting process is filled with so many problems that when an election is close, and this was certainly a close election in LA, you really can't be certain that the people who were declared the winners really were the winners.
Yeah, there's the problem. You know, and I've watched this. It didn't used to be this way in California, by the way.
No.
You know, Florida's up and down, big state, 25 million people, up and down by 11 o'clock at night. You've got the results. They declare winners, unless it's a really actual tight race, and sometimes it might take a little bit. But Florida's done, right? They haven't figured out. They have a great system. California will continue to count for weeks while you watch a Republican who's winning slowly, and then the Democrat slowly takes the win. I've watched it in Congress for several cycles. It's an embarrassment. And my problem with this, Hans, is that California has too many members of Congress anyway because of illegal aliens that they count in their census. They cheat in their elections, clearly. And sitting in another state, I feel like I'm disenfranchised as a voter. California has too much representation in Congress, too much power in the Electoral College, too much power of representation to take money, and so on and so forth. I think that I have standing to say something, but my attorneys say I don't. Last word to you.
Oh, I agree. That's why the apportionment formula needs to be changed. So it's based on citizen population, not total population, because with all the illegals and legal aliens in California, they have probably 5 or 6 congressional seats they should not have.
I think it's actually 7, but we can quibble about the numbers, but the fact of the matter is it's several. It's 5, it's 6, it's 7, whatever it is. It's wrong, and everybody knows it. At any rate, Hans, we'll keep watching California slowly trickle in. We'll see Graham Plattner get elevated to be a Senate candidate today. What a sad commentary on the Democrat Party.
It is. It is a very sad commentary, and a dangerous commentary.
Agreed. Hans, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Send me an email, stevegruber.com. Always want to hear from you all across this great country of ours. Keep the Nazis out of the U.S. Senate. That's kind of our mantra today. Keep the hateful, actual tattoo-wearing Nazis out of the United States Senate. Is it really too much to ask anymore in America? Apparently. It's too much to ask the Democrats. I'll be back. All right, back to it now. The jobs number that came out last week, man, it got my attention. It was supposed to be 85,000 jobs. It came in at 172,000. And something else unusual happened. March and April jobs numbers were revised markedly upward. That doesn't normally happen, but it did this time. So pretty interesting. Joining me is Nick Hopwood, certified financial planner, founder of Peak Wealth Management. Nick, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. You know, here's my question. I keep seeing the experts, maybe I use that term loosely, making these dire claims about this bad thing's going to happen, that bad thing. And it seems to me that inflation's lower, unemployment's lower, jobs are up. All these reports come in more positive, sometimes significantly more positive than what the experts claim is supposed to happen. So are they really experts, or are they just trying to manipulate something?
Well, we just want to look at the hard data. All of the soft data, as you say, any surveys or expectations, we need to take that into consideration, that they're just that. They're just soft numbers. The hard numbers, that's what matters. As you mentioned, the jobs are looking excellent. However, the negative part of that is now that the Federal Reserve, the odds are that the Federal Reserve will raise rates before they cut. And so that's what has the market concerned.
You think so? Kevin Warsh is in there, highly touted by the president. If he raises rates, he'll lose favor in about a half a second. What do you think?
Yeah, he's in a pickle.
He's in a pickle. Yeah. Most people don't get out of the pickle. They get run down and tagged out. All right, so let's talk about IPOs. SpaceX, about to go public, I understand. What does that mean? And what does it mean for, my history with IPOs and watching them? IPOs will come out of the gate and they shoot way up and the numbers are great. But after a short period of time, they depress and come down before they ever get back to that original IPO number. Am I right or wrong?
You're absolutely right. And if we have the graphic here, I know there's a lot of data on the screen, but if you take a close look, you're going to see a list of 20 plus companies that went public over the last 10, 15 years. And what do they have in common? All of them had a 1-year drawdown of around 55% on average. What that means is, if you look at the price that they came public at, there's going to be a tremendous opportunity to buy at a lower price in the next 12 months. That doesn't mean it's going to happen to SpaceX, but look at this trend. The average is a 55% drop. So before you get FOMO and you get fear of missing out on this IPO, just consider that you may have an opportunity to be rewarded with some patience.
Yeah. Fear of missing out. Jump in now. Don't let it get away. And then the only thing that got away was your money. SpaceX is a good company, though. I mean, right? It's successful. Yeah. It could be the biggest IPO in history, right?
Yes, it's shaping up to be the biggest IPO in history, and it's exciting. I get it. The space travel, the space exploration, the satellites, the internet coming to the entire world. There's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of excitement, and it's justified. But you have to be paying attention to the price that you pay. And it's coming out pretty expensive. And so that's why a lot of these hot IPOs end up having big drawdowns. I'm not telling you not to buy it. I'm just telling you this is the trend of the history.
Nick doesn't give financial advice on this program. He just gives observations. There. Got that in for you, Nick.
That's right.
Anyhow, we'll see what happens with that. Let's talk about Obamacare. These subsidies continue to fail the American taxpayer, that's for sure. It's also failing some people who want Obamacare health care coverage, doesn't it?
Yeah, we have a new client who just fired their former advisor because of this exact situation. They had a nice capital gain that they realized of $70,000. But, okay, so let me back up. They're pre-Medicare, but they're retired already. So they're 60, 64, looking for some Obamacare subsidies. And if you go over 84,000, you get zero subsidy. And so if you harvest a $70,000 capital gain, now you're in a little bit of a pickle because any interest income, any other dividends could push you over the 84,000. And that's exactly what's happening for my new clients. And so the conversation shifts from trying to obtain this $1,800 a month tax subsidy to saying, well, what happens if we want to do a little bit more capital gains? Well, guess what? You can sell above 84,000 and have free capital gains. this couple, they could do another $30,000 of IRA withdrawals at 12% tax rate, or a Roth conversion at 12% tax rate. So they're disappointed that they're not going to get the subsidy, but there still are other tax planning opportunities.
If I'm not mistaken, the NASDAQ, the S&P, the Dow, despite the correction last week of about 2.5% in some places, I mean, we've been on a run here. The markets are up for the year, are they not?
They are. Steve, last week, minus 2.5%. Tough finish to the week on Friday. But the prior 9 weeks, all positive, a nice 9-week stretch for the S&P of plus 19%. So 9 weeks, 19%. It's actually the best 9-week stretch ever. And there's been 10 other times in history where we've had a 9-week positive run. And guess what? It's higher a month later, 9 out of 10 times. Higher a year later, 8 out of 10 times. I like our odds.
I like the odds, too. All right, so if somebody's listening to you right now and they say, you know, I'm not really sure, I need a second opinion, get a second opinion from Nick. He'll look at your Social Security. He'll look at your investments. He'll take a glance at what's going on. There's a QR code on your screen for Peak Wealth Management. You give people a second look, don't you?
Absolutely. And oftentimes, it's not because they're upset with their performance or they can't get on the hottest IPO. It's because they don't hear from their advisor and they're questioning their tax advice, or the advisor won't give tax advice, or they're not doing any planning for them whatsoever.
Right. There you have it. Get a second opinion. Get a guy that'll talk to you. Nick Hopwood will talk to you. There's a QR code, peakwm.com as well. Peakwm.com. Nick, always a good conversation, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Have a great day.
You too. I think I'd like to own SpaceX, but I will wait. But I already knew that because I've seen these IPOs go up like a rocket and then come off a cliff. We'll have more after this. All right, well, the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday, something you won't hear probably anywhere else. It's incredibly important, a ruling for you, a consumer. If you need a furnace, if you need air conditioning, if you need a new water heater, the U.S. Supreme Court slapping down Biden administration energy rules and said you had to change all of this. If you didn't know, they changed the efficiency, they changed the requirements, they changed how the machines work, and the Supreme Court says, well, you really can't do that. You've gone way too far. The department may not adopt standards that effectively eliminate from the market products that have distinct performance characteristics. Sending it back to the D.C. Circuit and say, try again, you guys are wrong. The department has determined that the rules at issue are factually and legally flawed, and the agency is considering a new rulemaking in which it would correct those errors, said the Trump administration Solicitor General. So there you have it. It's a break for you, the good guys, right? They keep coming along, oh, you have to have a car that gets 100 miles a gallon, and your water heater can only use 3 drops of water, and so on and so forth. Nonsense. Hey, by the way, if your dog is family, and let's be honest, they are, you got to feed them great food. Great Lakes Pet Food is what our dogs have eaten for years and years and years now. Great Lakes Pet Food, American-made, high quality, made from premium pork, chicken, and turkey. Michigan-made, it's trusted, and it's the same dog food we use here for our canine crew. Do your dog a favor, check out GreatLakesPetFood.com. They'll ship it right to your door. You want real dog food, not that junk made in China. Remember that a couple of years ago when all those dogs and cats were dying from bad food from China? Don't let that happen. Trust somebody who's getting it done right here in America. GreatLakesPetFood.com. It's good stuff. You're going to be glad you did this. It's high quality. It's an American company and a partner of ours for years now. I was just thinking about this. They've been around for a long time. It's all the dogs have eaten for probably 10 years. GreatLakesPetFood.com. All right. We got a lot more to come today. We're going to continue to watch the primaries in Maine. The polls will be open here momentarily, and then Graham Plattner on his way to being the first Nazi selected by the Democrat Party to be a member of the United States Senate. First Nazi. Well, in a while anyway. Welcome to Daybreak.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now on Real America's Voice.
Yes, it does. Welcome back to a Tuesday. Glad to have you on board the Truth Train here as we ride out of the station, fighting for you from the foxhole freedoms we do every single day. Three big things this hour. Number one, could there be a break in the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping? Maybe. We'll see if there's any connection to another kidnapping in the area. Seems like it could be related, not sure. Number two, the U.S. Supreme Court continues to clean up the mess left by the Biden administration, this time over obnoxious rules pertaining to how much energy your furnace and AC use. We just talked about that. And number three, primary day in Maine. Democrats expected to nominate a Senate candidate with a Nazi tattoo and a history of strange and sometimes violent activities with his women, plus membership on hookup apps that include girls as young as 13. A real class act. Jonathan Turley mocks Democrats for supporting Graham Plattner for showing off his Nazi tattoo. Here it is.
On his chest for years. Every time she shaved, it was there, and he didn't really want to know what it was. And then you have people like Schumer, who falsely accused Musk of doing a Nazi salute in one of the dumbest narratives the Democrats have tried. This guy has an actual SS death head on his chest, and Schumer can only say he'll give us the Senate.
Yeah, he'll give us the Senate. Ivy's with me this morning. Ivy, I don't know if you saw this or not. There was a voter that we had that was on that said the Nazi tattoo not disqualifying. If he had an Israeli flag, a tattoo, that would be disqualifying. I mean,
really?
These people have lost their minds.
Well, listen, the thing is, when an actual Nazi lover comes onto the scene, the Democrats are like, yes! We want this guy.
Yeah, he's fine. He
has a Nazi tattoo. He had communist sympathizing posts. He mocks wounded veterans. He's in this sexting or had a sexting scandal. And these are the guys that this is the guy the Democrats back, because it's not about integrity. It's about loyalty.
Right? It's about conformity to the rules, to the narrative, to the agenda.
It's like everything that they criticize and say that the president is, this guy is.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're all for him.
Look, we know somebody living in Charlottesville, right? And that whole thing back in 2017, where the white supremacists turned out and the Democrats turned out, we all know now that was the Southern Poverty Law Center paying for the Nazis to be there.
That's right.
And then fundraising off of it. They made tens of millions of dollars. In fact, they tripled their income off that deal. And so it's all a ruse. Look, there aren't white supremacists hiding behind every tree, except in Maine, apparently, where they have at least one for sure. And he's going to be the Democrat nominee for Senate because he wins today.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see. But I just don't think that he can win.
I don't think he beats Susan Collins. No, look.
But I have been surprised before.
So. Well, yeah, that's true. Susan Collins wins this election. This guy is an absolute embarrassment for the Democrat Party because they all keep getting asked about him. The only good news is it takes some of the heat off from James Tallarico, the heretic, the actual heretic from Texas, who claims to be a pastor and then says, God is non-binary and this. And then, of course, you've got Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. The primary in Michigan doesn't happen until the 6th of August, so we get to wait for that result. But right now, he's leading in the polls.
You know, I've seen a lot of his signs driving around Michigan. Our son plays a little bit of travel baseball, so we're driving him around a lot. And I've seen a lot of his signs. And everyone's actually very surprised. I'm like, do you guys do any research? Or they or they believe in his agenda and are
as long as it says D next to the name, as long as it's a Democrat, it doesn't matter.
You know, sadly, I have to tell you that my grandparents were like that. Yeah. And they were big time Clinton fans.
Right, but this is not Bill Clinton.
Yeah, that's true.
This is a long way from Bill Clinton. This was a long way from John Kerry from 2004. I even think it's, maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, what is this? You have another bite for me from another
yeah, go ahead, roll that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, roll that, Anthony.
My name is Beth, and I'm running for Congress in the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District. After Trump was elected, my representative Seth Moulton tried to throw trans kids under the bus for his political career. And that's why I stepped up to challenge him. Trans people aren't political props, and slapping a rainbow on a bomb isn't support. Congress needs to take real action.
I want you to see that here's a little Biden. This is where I agree with Biden right here in this face that he gives. Like, what?
Well played.
Yeah, what?
You've got the bearded lady out there running for office. I mean, we talked yesterday about how it's all a sideshow at the circus. Well, the sideshow at the circus for the Democrats is going mainstream, apparently.
When did abnormal become normal and wrong become right and right become wrong? It just seems like we live in an upside down world some days, and I just scratch my head going, how did we get here?
Well, and Seth Moulton, by the way, is a pretty far left Democrat that she's talking about. But he's not radical enough for her, the bearded lady. Yeah. We need to be more radical because Seth Moulton, didn't do 100% of the list. He only did 99% of the list. So therefore, he's got to be attacked. I mean, this is the idiocy.
People need to take this example and the others, the gentleman running in Maine.
Gentleman.
What? Not a gentleman. Poor choice of words.
That's all right. Go ahead.
But anyhow, to look at this and say you need to stand up and do your civic duty. We do have a duty as Americans to get involved, and so I'm hoping that this will open some people's eyes and like, hey, let's get going.
Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and John M. They said a well-educated electorate was key to, keeping this nation going forward.
Absolutely.
They don't know anything about anything. Oh, it's a Democrat, I'll vote for him. They don't, like you said, they do no research. They don't look into these people. I mean, what did being on a pickup app that the average age is 13 to 24?
And how old is he?
He's 40. Whatever.
Well, disgusting either way, but.
Yeah, right. It's just, it's bizarre.
Because he is married, right?
Yeah, and he's an oyster farmer, but he's not. That's the latest thing that came out yesterday. His oyster farm, he claimed to be an oyster farmer. That business was not incorporated until after he entered the election. So suddenly he's an oyster farmer. By the way, he made $5,000 from his oyster farming operation last year. The majority of his money comes from the United States government because he's on full disability.
Oh.
He gets $4,800 a month from the United States government. I mean, he is a veteran. Okay. But he's also a guy who said that a Purple Heart recipient was an effing idiot and deserved to effing die.
Yeah, and that there was something else that he said in regards to wounded veterans that I can't recall offhand, but it was pretty harsh in terms of, I don't really care about them, or they don't deserve, even though he's receiving money for being disabled. They don't deserve it, but he does apparently.
Yeah, he does, and it pays for everything. His oyster farm is a fraud.
Yeah.
His tattoo is real. He bragged about it to at least one girlfriend, being this is my Totenkopf because I'm a warrior.
Right. The thing is, that's confusing to me too, is, all these no king protests on their signs. They list the things, no kings, no Nazis is part of that list.
Oh, yeah, that's part of the deal too. No Nazis, unless it's our Nazi, at which point we'll support our Nazi because we'll win the Senate. Susan Collins.
Loyalty versus integrity.
Yeah, you got that.
Power versus doing things that are right.
Yeah, power versus everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Love you, Ivy.
Love you.
We'll take a break. What do you make of all that? Send us an email, stevegruber.com, the place to get that done. We read them all and respond to as many as we can. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Daybreak. Our next interview is a must-see for anyone who feels like their skin complexion worse for wear after summer. As you probably know, too much fun in the sun can take its toll on your skin, leading to photo damage, hyperpigmentation, and premature aging. Turns your skin to leather, even with proper sunscreen use. Fortunately, today's special guest can help you rejuvenate your complexion and reclaim a gorgeous glow. Her name, Dr. Kathy Sarvis. Dr. Sarvis, a nationally recognized wellness strategist, educator with over 3 decades of experience empowering women to elevate their health and confidence and performance through science-backed, results-driven strategies. Dr. Sarvis, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Steve. Glad to be here.
So, Doctor, what do you have to share with us this morning?
Well, one of my favorite skincare finds recently is an amazing company called Purins. They are an organic skincare brand who's been turning heads in Elle and LA Weekly. To date, they've helped over 60,000 women fall in love with their complexion again. Purins delivers clean, organic skincare without harsh preservatives, which I totally love.
Yeah, fantastic. I know a lot of women aren't a fan of synthetic chemicals and harsh preservatives for their skin, including Ivy, and for good reason. So gentle organic skincare sounds like a breath of fresh air. What else can you tell us about these products?
Sure. One of my favorites is their Cellular Restore Serum. It features a gentle alternative to retinol called bakuchiol. In a small focus group, 92.9% of women saw fewer wrinkles after just 3 weeks of applying Cellular Restore Serum. So you're getting similar benefits as retinol, but without the redness or irritation. Then they have Cellular Hydration Serum, which contains tremella mushroom. Tremella hydrates the deepest layers of skin better than hyaluronic acid. It's such a fantastic moisturizer. They also have Lift and Glow Organic Eye Cream. If you want to lighten the appearance of under eye circles and restore a radiant complexion, then you'll love Lift and Glow. Finally, they have Even Glow Serum. Even Glow features Kakadu Plum, which delivers 100 times more concentrated vitamin C than oranges. Even Glow works wonders for reducing dark spot appearance.
Yeah. It sounds like it's something maybe I should be trying. I understand there's a special offer out there today for the viewers and listeners of this program. Is that correct?
Yes. Right now, for a limited time, you can save 35% on all Purins products. Simply go to Purins.com and enter coupon code DAYBREAK at checkout. And remember, every purchase is backed by their industry-leading 365-day money-back guarantee.
All right, Dr. Sarvis, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Steve. Have a great day.
You too. Now, if you want to give Purins skincare a try, you know what to do. Head over to Purins.com. Enter the coupon code DAYBREAK at checkout. That's Purins, Pureance.com. Coupon code DAYBREAK. Save 35% on your order today. All right. Moving on now. If you thought the SAVE Act was gone or Donald Trump wasn't thinking about it anymore, you'd be mistaken. He is pounding on Senator Thune, John Thune of South Dakota, to get rid of the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian is the person who can decide whether or not something ends up in a reconciliation bill or not. Well, they're asking and demanding that she be removed, but so far, it's not happening. And in fact, John Thune says that she should stay there. Elizabeth McDonough is her name. He says it would be more damaging than helpful. Look, if we don't fix voting in America like we're seeing in California today, we've got permanent problems in this country. If you want to turn America into California, just continue to ignore the Save America Act. Continue to make excuses as to why it cannot be done, and so on and so forth. And Alaska, please, find a real senator. Get rid of Lisa Murkowski, please. Do something about this. It would be greatly appreciated by the rest of the country. I mean, you've got all these things going on. And the president's trying to do what he can to fix these problems. Let me give you an example. I want to go to bite number 2 here, Anthony. Let me give you an example. The amount of fraud that's been exposed in this country, the amount of fraud is absolutely staggering. And Stephen Miller here explains it pretty well. Listen.
not abiding by our laws, and the amount that has been fleeced from us is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. I believe, based on what I've seen and what I've heard, is that we could balance the federal budget if the only dollars that went out of the Treasury went to individuals who were properly, lawfully, correctly eligible to receive them. And that ultimately is going to be what we have to do as a country. In the meantime, because of the Vice President's leadership, you are seeing the most muscular, robust, aggressive, dedicated, determined, and speedy effort to shut down criminal fraud that has not only ever occurred in the history of this country, but in any developed nation. So thank you.
Any developed nation. By some estimates now, it could be $1 trillion. If we knew where our money was going and who was getting it and how it was being spent, we might actually be able to get this thing under control. But with NGOs and nonprofits and all these others cashing in with your money, it's never going to be fixed unless we actually get to it, which the president seems to be working on. Meanwhile, if the Democrats do get back in power, what is their plan? Well, they don't actually have one. How do I know? Because Hakeem Jeffries cannot outline a coherent plan for the country. It's Bite 14, Anthony. Play that for the folks.
As Democrats consider their governing agenda, can you provide an update on what a potential H.R. 1 would look like? And what personally are your priorities to include in the first bill of a Democratic majority?
We're in the midst of having that conversation right now as a caucus, and we look forward to leaning in to those discussions. And it's going to be maximum engagement as it relates to ensuring that every part of the caucus has input on the governing agenda. But it is going to focus on affordability.
But what does it mean? Well, what does that mean? What are you going to do? What is your plan? Maximum engagement. Oh, I see. So you don't have a plan. There is no plan, actually, except to go after Donald Trump and impeach him 27 times. That's the plan, my friends. I'll take a break and be back on Daybreak.
Acting Attorney Vote the yeas. Acting Attorney General.
All right, as I mentioned at the top of the program, and I'll elaborate a bit now, Donald Trump has formally nominated Todd Blanche as the next Attorney General of the United States. This will mean a fist fight of a confirmation hearing. Why? Democrats won't approve anything. They won't approve anything, whether Todd Blanche is qualified or not qualified. Let me tell you the future. Here's what's going to happen. He's going to come in for a confirmation hearing. Democrats are going to say outrageous things about Donald Trump. They're going to attack Todd Blanche. They're going to attack ICE and CBP and on and on and on. And they're not actually going to ask him questions. They're going to give speeches. When he tries to answer, they're going to reclaim their time. Blah, blah, blah. That's what's going to happen. It'll be another embarrassing circus on Capitol Hill with no real objective except to get clickbait, to get little clips to go viral, and so on and so forth. Todd Blanche qualified to do the job. He is currently the acting Attorney General. He spent over a year as Deputy Attorney General under Pam Bondi. She was shown the door here a few months ago now. And he's been out there fighting fraud, going after the states of Minnesota and California. He's been fighting to keep boys out of girls' sports, and so on and so forth. And so here we are, getting set up for what'll be just another ugly display of Democrats on Capitol Hill. Just wait until Alito steps down from the Supreme Court, which I believe will happen in June or July. Samuel Alito, who's been having some health issues, is going to say, I'm done here. And so Donald Trump will get the chance to nominate yet another Supreme Court justice, and the Democrats will go crazy. Not an election year. Not an election year. Well, the election hasn't happened. The Senate is what it is. But that could have implications for the Senate races in Maine and Michigan and Georgia, too, depending on who gets nominated and how that process goes. If you think the Todd Blanche thing is going to be a circus, just wait till there's a Supreme Court vacancy to be addressed this year, which it looks like there will be. And then they're just going to go bananas again. Gives me a bit of a headache, but now I've predicted the future for you. Swami's got you covered here. I'll be back. All right, my next guest, Frank Cassidy, is Donald Trump's former federal housing commissioner who worked with Bill Pulte at FHA. And Bill Pulte's nomination to be the acting director of national intelligence in the upcoming FISA vote. We've got a lot going on there, so I'm glad to welcome Frank Cassidy to the program. Frank, good morning.
Steve, good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so some people say Mr. Pulte is an unconventional choice. I think that's probably fair to say in some ways, but President Trump wants seen as an unconventional choice because he's an outsider to politics. What do you make of this nomination?
You make a great point, Steve. Look, Bill Pulte is an unconventional choice, but President Trump often looks for proven leaders with track records who are unconventional, who don't have the typical DC insider resume. If you look at what Bill's done with Fannie and Freddie over at the Federal Housing Finance Agency, he jumped in day one. He tackled the bureaucratic red tape. He streamlined and deregulated a lot of these lending programs. Fannie and Freddie are, $10+ trillion corporations with thousands of employees. So Bill has proved himself, and that's what President Trump prioritizes: loyalty and proven leaders who have track records.
So Bill Pulte, somebody you know.
I do know Bill, yes. So I served as the Federal Housing Commissioner, so I oversaw FHA. It's about a $2 trillion portfolio. It's under HUD, and Bill is under the Federal Housing Finance Agency, oversees Fannie Freddie, which is about 60% or so of all U.S. single-family mortgages. So Bill and I worked pretty closely together.
So when people go after Pulte, and it's happening from both sides. Let's be honest about that. He's not been embraced by some people on the right either. What would you tell them about Bill Pulte to say, look, this is a pretty good choice?
Look, President Trump is entitled to have picks who he trusts and who are loyal to him. DNI is a position that is very close to the president. They have an office in the White House. Their job is to essentially collect information from all the different various agencies. The president deserves to have somebody in that position who is loyal to him, who he's worked with before, and who he knows and trusts. And that's why he picked Director Pulte for that position.
All right. So let me switch gears now. Let me ask you about housing. You were in that area of expertise for a number of years, Frank, and there's a lot of questions about housing in America, affordability of housing, availability, that we don't have enough to go around. Yep. But we don't seem to find we're not finding any ways to fix it. I think we need to reduce the blockades, the permitting process. I mean, look at California, the big fires there. Not a single house has been rebuilt in Malibu. Not a single house has been rebuilt from the Palisades fire. Not one. Because of permitting and regulations and so on and so forth. It's insane, isn't it?
Well, Steve, you nailed it. There's too much bureaucratic red tape. President Trump understands the housing market. He was a developer. We need to build more housing. That's the fastest, most efficient way to make housing more affordable. Unfortunately, the Democrats, particularly the Biden administration, put in so much bureaucratic red tape that has made it hard to build. When you look at the cost to develop housing, 20 to 40% of housing development is some form of government bureaucratic red tape. When I was FHA commissioner, day one, we jumped in and we cut a lot of that red tape. We wanted to make it easier and more efficient for developers to tap into financing, to build more housing, to get more Americans into home ownership.
Well, I did see, and I just talked about it with the folks here a moment ago. There was an important Supreme Court decision yesterday that tossed out these new regulations for furnaces, water heaters, air conditioners, all these things that were put in by the Biden administration for climate change or whatever. I mean, all of that nonsense has to go, too, because all that does is crush consumers. They go to get a recharge on their air conditioner, and suddenly it went from $8 a pound to $110 a pound. And if you need 9 or 10 pounds of coolant or 12, man, people don't have that, so they just go without. We've got to stop this nonsense, don't we?
One of the first things we did last year when I entered the administration, thanks to President Trump's effort and encouragement to deregulate and streamline, was we removed the Biden-era green energy mandate, which essentially said to developers, if you built multifamily housing, the only way to get the lowest interest rate adder, called the mortgage insurance premium for an FHA loan, was if you got your building certified as a green energy building. So developers were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to jump through hoops and get reports that said their building was green energy. Now, most builders and most new developments are building to these standards anyways. But having to get them certified and pay these third party groups to get those certifications was a policy that the Biden administration put in place. So we removed that day one, and we lowered the mortgage insurance premium for all multifamily FHA mortgages to 25 basis points across the board, regardless of Energy Star certifications. It was a very ideologically driven mandate from the Biden administration.
Another concern that we talked about here in the last hour is the possibility that the Fed, even with Mr. Warsh now in charge, could be looking at a rate increase. Look, mortgages are still, what, about 7%, right? They're sitting at a fairly high rate.
We're in the mid sixes.
Okay,
we're in the mid sixes. President Trump just named a new Fed chair. I am hopeful, and look, I don't have the crystal ball, but I do hope that towards the end of the year we'll start to see some tightening in interest rates. Fannie Freddie under Director Pulte initiated a $200 billion bond buying campaign where Fannie and Freddie on their balance sheet will buy the mortgage bonds from Fannie and Freddie loans. So that has helped with interest rates, and I hope that will continue to help. We'll see what happens with the war, but I am hopeful with the new Fed chair that mortgage rates and spreads should hopefully tighten by the end of the year here.
Yeah, nothing has changed with the war, obviously, as we continue to watch and see what will happen there. But with inflation kind of stuck where it is, the predictions are now coming in more likely than not that the interest rates will be raised. And that, I don't think, will sit well with the president. Your thoughts?
I think that, as you note, look, higher interest rates make it more challenging to get Americans into homes. But what I was focused on at FHA was using the power of FHA to get more Americans into homes. When you look at the average age of the first-time home buyer, it's up to 40 years old, Steve. It used to be in its mid-20s. So we're becoming a nation of renters. President Trump has prioritized single-family home ownership. The new Road to Housing bill contemplates banning institutional owners from buying up single-family homes and driving up the cost of housing for Americans that want to enter the housing market. When I was FHA commissioner, we focused on using the platform. FHA is primarily a mortgage for first-time homeowners to get Americans into homes. You can put down as little as 3.5%. I bought my first house when I was 20 years old. I was in college, was moving off campus with a couple buddies, wanted to buy a place, didn't know how I'd finance it, was able to get an FHA insured loan, put down 3.5%. Still have that property to this day, 16 years later, and it's more than doubled in value.
Yeah.
Home ownership is the fastest way to create long-term wealth, and we need to get younger Americans focused on entering home ownership and buying homes.
Frank Cassidy, good conversation, sir. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Steve, absolutely. Great chatting with you.
Thank you, sir. We'll see where Bill Pulte goes. Frank Cassidy has some ideas about how to help out home ownership. What do you think about all that? Good stuff. We'll take a break and be back on Daybreak. All right, welcome back to it now as we continue on. The relationship between Israel and the United States is complicated, to say the least. Complicated. I know that because the president has been on the phone with Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi, a few times recently, and it's not been a friendly conversation, basically giving him the dress down to knock off any military action involving Iran so they can try to work toward a peace deal in the Middle East. And while that's going on in the background, Marlon Stutzman, member of Congress representing Indiana 3, is putting together a deal to create a resolution that would transition U.S.-Israel relations. He joins me now. Congressman, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Steve. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you've got a plan to transition U.S.-Israel relations. Please explain.
Yeah, Israel is our greatest ally. You look at the growth that Israel has developed over the last several decades, and they're a country of almost 10 million people. Their economy is approaching $1 trillion in GDP, and our country and Israel have worked together for decades. And of course, you look at what's happening in Europe. Europe is now sitting on their hands. Israel has become our best ally in the Middle East and in that part of the world. So as we look towards the future, Israel wants to stand on its own 2 feet. And one of the things that Prime Minister Netanyahu said a couple of weeks ago on 60 Minutes is that he wants to move away from the supplement of $3.8 billion that we give to Israel every year. Most of that money is used to buy equipment from the United States, about 90% of it. But so I approached them and said, look, if this is real, we want to support moving this direction. I'm a budget hawk. If we can save money for the American taxpayer, let's do that. And there's mutual agreement on both sides. And I think this is the proper way to go for the future of both of our countries.
Well, what do you make of the attitude, Congressman, of millions of Americans now? There is this anti-Israel sentiment. And it's been ginned up in college classrooms and high schools and so forth. Do they not understand the history between the United States and Israel? Do they feel that people are being, persuaded to believe something they shouldn't? Or should our relationship with Israel be redefined, redeveloped beyond what you've said here? Because there is this anti-Israel sentiment, and a lot of people are caught up in it. You've got people in conservative media, people that are pro-Israel, people that are anti-Israel. Where did this come from?
Well, I think a lot of it just comes from hatred that other countries have pushed into social media world. A lot of our young people are seeing this propaganda that has changed the mindset towards Israel. A lot of it started on Ivy League campuses, but it's not just on the left anymore. It's also bleeded into the right. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. I mean, these people have developed this animosity and hatred for the Jewish people. Look, I separate, the Israeli state from the Jewish people. While they're not one and the same, but the Jewish people have a right to the land there, going back to the biblical times, going back to the Abrahamic covenant. And so there's definitely a hatred towards Judaism. I think all hatred is wrong. I don't care if it's towards any group of people. So that's one of the reasons why I think this could be a positive step for especially young conservatives who just believe that foreign aid altogether is a problem. And you know what? I understand that perspective. When housing prices have gone to where, a young person of 28 used to be able to buy a home, now to the average age of 40, and they're asking, why are we sending all this money overseas? That's a fair question. And so if your best friend says, hey, you know what?
Here's my question, and I'm going to ask for a whole bunch of people. Why should we continue to support Israel? Because here's the bottom line question. What do we get out of it? We get entangled in foreign wars over and over again. And if we didn't need the oil, it would be a different equation, I believe. But what does the United States get out of this relationship with Israel that is so worth preserving?
Well, first of all, I believe there's a spiritual connection to the land of Israel. But you know what? As a state or as a U.S. congressman looking out for my constituents in Northeast Indiana, there's also an economic value. There's also just the fact that we're defending democracy in the Middle East. Look at the neighborhood there. It's a rough neighborhood, but at the same time, President Trump has been a strong leader and has developed partnerships in the Middle East that we haven't seen in decades. And so when you have a strong region, and that's why I think Israel is such an important piece to the center of this, being a democracy and also known as startup nation where tons of technology is created. We have 700,000 Americans that live in Israel that have citizenship. There's a lot of folks that travel back and forth between the United States and Israel on a daily basis. But also you look at Saudi Arabia, look at UAE, look at Qatar and other countries that are leaning towards the West. They don't want the partnerships with Asia, especially China or Russia. They really want to develop cities that are modern, that are current. While they have different religious views, that's fine. As long as they don't, let's just not shoot at each other. I think that's the bottom line here. Let's develop a region that is strong economically, that's growing. Europe, again, I think is going the opposite direction, and for a variety of reasons. But I think that's why, countries like Israel and Saudi Arabia are two of the anchor countries in the Middle East that can help bring peace and stability to that region. And ultimately, that's good for everybody.
Congressman, I guess my concern is if all the guns and grenades and bombs were taken away, some of these folks would beat each other to death with sticks and stones because it's so ingrained in them, and that's the concern. And as a result, the United States gets pulled into it far too often for many folks. Anyhow, I appreciate the conversation and the candidness. Thank you for being here.
You bet. Thanks, Steve.
Greatly appreciate it. All right, so I wanted to ask some questions there, so you guys can decide for yourselves. Good thing, bad thing. Look, everybody's talking about it. Where do you come down on it? Right? That's why we have people like Congressman Stutzman here to sort it out. I'll take a break. It's Daybreak. All right, let's check in on sports now with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. The San Antonio Spurs are on the board in the NBA Finals, taking Game 3 over the New York Knicks last night, 115-111 in a raucous Madison Square Garden crowd in New York. Victor Wembanyama led the Spurs with 32 points. Stephen Castle added 23. Jalen Brunson led the Knicks with 32. New York still leads the series 2-1. Game 4 is tomorrow night in the Big Apple. There were 8 games in Major League Baseball last night. American League winners were the New York Yankees, Tampa Bay, Houston, and Seattle. National League winners were Philadelphia, Washington, Milwaukee, and San Diego. The last 2 spots to the College Baseball World Series were filled yesterday as Alabama and Oklahoma won suspended games in the Super Regionals yesterday. The Men's College World Series starts on Friday in Omaha, Nebraska. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. One Republican lawmaker says that voters, if they vote for Plattner, it's not his baggage, it is his extreme policies that are far more dangerous. And that might be exactly true. Policies that crushed Maine's cost of living. Maine voters heading to the polls today. His personal life is a mess, says State Rep Laurel Libby. We understand that. We've seen scandal after scandal. But what I think is incredibly dangerous are the policies that he is looking to advance. Socialist, communist policies. The extreme green agenda that has caused electricity to skyrocket for people all over this country. If we see that implemented in D.C. and we see costs increase across the country, it won't just be crushing to Mainers, it will be crushing to American families and workers across the board. She is so right. It's not just that this guy is, I think the technical term is turd. You know, am I allowed to say that? I think that's what he is, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Brock. But the fact of the matter is it's the policies that are worse. Worse. Because they will crush real American families like yours and mine. Anyhow, technical terms. Well, he's going to win it today. The question is, can he beat Susan Collins? I don't believe so. And you better hope not. Bad for the whole country. I'll take a break. We've got more to come here on Daybreak.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now.
All right, welcome to it as we launch another brand new hour, lighting the fuse here, fighting for you from the Foxwell Freedom. Thank you for being here. Wherever you may be listening or wherever you may be streaming the program, good to have you here on a Tuesday. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, why is it that unions back Democrats almost exclusively? Some backed Donald Trump in 24, but the UAW backing the worst candidates possible. Rank and file won't support it. Number two, data centers front and center. Again, this time in Michigan as communities try to fight back against this massive machine. And number three, accountability. Will there ever be any when it comes to all this fraud we've been talking about? It could be $1 trillion in fraud across this country at the local, state, and federal levels. All these people cashing in, all these billions of dollars that went out during COVID to people that didn't deserve it, to flat-out fraudsters. Of course, you look at what's happening in other places like Minnesota. Good news, though, on that front. J.D. Vance, the fraud czar. Is that what they're calling him, the fraud czar? Whatever. I hate those terms. This czar, that czar. This ain't Russia, all right? I hate those terms. But J.D. Vance, referring evidence gathered by Congress that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison failed to act against mass welfare fraud in their state, that has been referred to the DOJ for potential prosecution. It is a criminal investigation now. Vance announced a criminal referral in a social media post late yesterday, in which he raised concerns that Walz's administration also tried to retaliate against state workers who blew the whistle on the welfare fraud scams in Minnesota, estimated by the House Oversight Committee to have cost taxpayers at least $9 billion. Just in that state. So that's where you start on the road to $1 trillion of fraud. Minnesota is not a big state by population. Big state geographically, but not by population. I referred these allegations to the DOJ's new fraud division for criminal investigation, Vance wrote. Minnesota state officials are not above the law, and if they facilitated fraud, lied under oath about what they knew, or harassed or intimidated whistleblowers, they must face justice. The vice president's action came hours after the Oversight Committee released a bombshell report concluding that Walz and Ellison knew about widespread taxpayer fraud in the state's welfare programs, and they probably knew about it several years ago, maybe as early as 2019. Did they look the other way? Did they get enriched by way of their campaign funds? These are serious and legitimate questions. James Comer telling Just the News Monday that he believed lawmakers found evidence of criminality in the years-long cover-up of the fraud. Criminal behavior by the governor, by the attorney general. He said, I think that Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison should be held accountable. I think they've violated the laws. I think they've, violated the whistleblower protection laws. They have both, of course, denied any wrongdoing. Comer said the DOJ could present the evidence his committee gathered to a grand jury, and he says he's all for it. He's all in. Put it in front of a grand jury. Let them decide what has happened, what's criminal. The House committee concluding the Democrats in the state of Minnesota turned a blind eye to taxpayer losses because they feared political retribution from the politically active Somali community. So we import all these Somalians into Minnesota. They get members elected to Congress. And now the state House, the governor, the state Senate, the state House, all fear the Somalis. They want their votes. So they look the other way. Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison knew about the fraud in federal programs administered by the state of Minnesota much earlier than they admitted, the committee wrote in his final report. Instead of trying this, these are more quotes, instead of trying to stop this widespread fraud, Governor Walz's administration retaliated against employees who tried to raise concerns, going to great lengths to keep them quiet, including intimidation through regular check-ins with high-level agency officials and threats of military surveillance. Military surveillance. By the way, you can find this story at justthenews.com. John Solomon and his team always out front and center on these big stories. So they tried to intimidate him. The report said the federal government has determined that at least $300 million was stolen by Feeding Our Future. That's the one tied to Ilhan Omar. Feeding Our Future is the program tied to Ilhan Omar. Again, the Somali community comes in and intimidates people because they have money. They rip people off, apparently, from their Leering centers on down to their home health care and their different programs they have for autism and everything else. But Feeding Our Future and its affiliated vendors and providers from the USDA's federal child nutrition programs, an estimated $9 billion lost to fraud from the high-risk Medicaid programs in Minnesota since 2018. So you just keep, now we're at $9.3 billion. And then you're at $10 billion, and then you're at 20. When you're taking out billions of dollars, it doesn't take very long for the fraud to amp up, to amplify, to accumulate. The committee has found that Minnesota lacked adequate oversight, controls, and procedures to verify that federal taxpayer dollars were being used appropriately. Several major conclusions. Let me share those with you. Minnesota state agencies had clear authority to suspend or stop payments to providers suspected of fraud without requiring independent direction from courts, law enforcement agencies, or the federal government, but failed to act. State officials continued directing taxpayer dollars to Feeding Our Future and other high-risk entities, despite identifying serious program deficiencies enabling federal funds to flow to fraudsters. Testimony and documents show that concerns about litigation and accusations of discrimination, not legal barriers or directives from law enforcement, were cited as reasons for continuing payments to suspected fraudsters. Tim Walz's administration retaliated against state employees who raised concerns about fraud, while senior state officials prioritized managing political and media fallout. They didn't care about the fraud. They cared about how it was going to look in the media. How unbelievable. They didn't care about the folks going to work every day, supporting their families, busting their tails to build something in America. They cared about the fraudsters, who, by the way, in some cases were, in fact, supplying cash to political campaigns. Feed the Future, Feeding Our Future. That's the one that's going to get Ilhan Omar. Feeding the Future, because she was involved with it. Ilhan Omar, the one that was worth $500,000 and then worth $30 million and then worth $500,000 because they keep changing their filings. Talk about fraud. How about just tell us the truth about how much money you're making, where it's going, how you're using it? How about that for an idea? Just putting it out there. All right. Later in the program today, when Ivy gets in here, we're going to talk about the truth about ADHD. Something we've talked about a lot, but now I've got something for you. They want little boys to act like proper little girls. That conversation's still coming today on Daybreak. All right, transgenderism. How many genders are there? Can men have babies? Can women have prostate cancer? I mean, these are not tough questions. And yet here we find ourselves with these ridiculous questions and comments and statements. Ryan Staley is the Director of Research at Defending Education. He joins me now. Ryan, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Let me ask you, how many genders?
Well, there's two sexes there, Steve. It's just
Right.
male and female, written at the beginning of the Bible, and all through human history. So this is a kind of an insane conversation we're having in 2026, right?
Yeah. What does the pronoun XE, G, or Z, or however it's pronounced, what does that mean?
Yeah, these people operate in what they call queer theory, and basically anything goes as long as it drives their political programming further and further left. And you see this play out with what I wrote about in the, about the transgender athletes, especially at the K-12 level. You got to remember that these are children, and these children are being used as props and tools by the adults and the activists to drive their political agenda. So, your previous segment, you were talking about fraud. This is a different type of fraud, but it's fraud nonetheless. We're forcing, not you and I per se, but entities within our culture are trying to force children, especially young girls, to buy into this fraudulent idea that some male who believes he's a female can just go and be on, a female athletic team or go into, female only spaces. And by the way, not just young adolescent males. We see this case play out in Virginia with adult males demanding access to female spaces. So while right now this might be, an individual situation here or there, what are the limiting factors that are going to keep this from becoming an entire female team is just all males, right?
How long do I have to identify as a female to demand access to the locker room at the workout facility?
Steve, that's such a great question because, we have this idea from the Me Too movement of believe all women, but what trumps that, believe it or not, is believe all males who claim to be women. And so what we have to understand is your question is very, very proper that we should be asking is at what point does a male say, hey, I'm a female, and there's got to be a vetting process, or is there a vetting process at all? Because there's an incentivizing process here that's happening. And we saw this play out in the recent Fox pieces about the San Jose State University women's volleyball program. By the way, Steve, I've got 25 years coaching volleyball. And I wrote about this in 2022, that there are going to be coaches who see males and say, well, they identify as a female, so I'm going to recruit them because they will give us an advantage.
Right. Steve, winning at all costs, whether it's appropriate or not. And that's remarkable. The state of New York is moving to remove the word mother and father because they're antiquated from all their departments. No, they want, gestating person and non-gestating person. Apparently that's the new thing in New York. Look, moms and dads are important, aren't they? Rylan, aren't moms and dads? Look, you talked about the Bible there. The nuclear family is the foundational building block of every society in human history. The family is the building block by which societies are built. And yet since the 1960s, first with welfare programs in the Great Society and other adventures in experimentation in sociology and so forth, we have destroyed the American family. The black family has really been abused by these systems. And for me, and for you too, I believe, everything that's happening now is all about advancing queer theory, far left ideology into every aspect of American life as soon as possible. I've got people that I play their sound bites here. They won't appear here, of course, who say they can tell a kid's transgender at the age of 2. 2. Come on. This is not a serious conversation, is it?
No, because anybody who's raised a child knows that by 2, there's a lot that needs to happen there for them to have that awareness, and it's not there. It's not even developmentally appropriate to make that comment. I mean, these are the same people, Steve, who say that children in the womb are racist, right? So this is insanity that they keep pushing. But come back to your family comment. There's been studies done that show that throughout history, as the family goes, that civilization goes. And as civilizations have crumbled, they've documented that the family was destroyed prior to the process of those civilizations collapsing. And so there's a very real reason that we should be fighting and protecting the sanctity of the family and the nuclear family especially. And the problem is that this stuff has been injected into K-12 education for a long time, obviously coming out of the universities, especially the colleges of education, through the Black Lives Matter movement, which is still inside of school curriculums. We have a report that just came out on the DC public schools sex and health curriculum, where they're teaching children as young as 5th grade, which by the way is 10-year-olds, that there are people with male body parts. And they're not saying, males, they're saying people with, and I'll leave the language out. You can fill in the blanks and don't read the report.
Yeah.
But this is stuff, all this is centered around the queer theory idea, which, we know destroyed Hungary back in the mid 1900s.
Yeah. Here's what we know. We need a robust reintroduction of mental health facilities in this country. That's what we need. And the people running those mental health facilities need to be checked themselves before they get a job. The only person that can have full access to your child at a public school is the school counselor. Careful, folks. You can write, by the way, you can opt out of that and not allow that to happen because you don't know what goes on behind those closed. It's the only person on staff at a public school that has free access to your child or your grandchild. Keep that in mind. I got to run. Greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Let's rebuild the asylums, shall we? We've got a lot of folks that could use them. I'll be back. All right. Data centers back in, they don't leave the news anymore, right? But they're center stage tonight. MichiganNewsSource.com with a story on this. Two Kent County communities set for key meetings happened yesterday to weigh in on data center proposals. An 800-acre AI data center south of Myron Salon Township. Township officials approved the moratorium of new data center proposals after strong community feedback, but leaders are still evaluating zoning rules and weighing out questions about long-term impacts on the community and the environment, so they haven't given it up. Lowell Township planners review a site plan tied to Microsoft-linked data center projects. Both those meetings last night. Look, these people don't want them there. I'm not sure I want them in general because I find them to be onerous, overbearing. Control centers to watch you and I. AI license plates are soon to be the new thing. It'll track your car wherever it goes, how fast it goes, how much fuel it uses. Oh, yeah. They'll know exactly how you've destroyed the environment. Anyhow, a groundbreaking new study shows that there is a safe and inexpensive potential cancer treatment, and it's a drug you know about, ivermectin. The new study shows that individuals who took ivermectin, the parasite-fighting medication that gained fame during COVID, along with the drug mebendazole, saw remarkable results in cancer patients, right? This incredibly promising result have many Americans wondering where they can obtain U.S.-made ivermectin and mebendazole. That's where the wellness company comes in, my friends over there. You see and hear from their doctors on this program every week. They'll be here tomorrow. The wellness company is making 100% American-made ivermectin and mebendazole available to you at great prices. Say no to Big Pharma's greed and no to Big Pharma's poison. Say yes to a company that you can trust to bring the safe, affordable medications you need to market. If you're someone you love is interested in trying mebendazole, just go to twc.health/Gruber. twc.health/Gruber. Use the promo code Gruber. You're going to save 10%. Promo code is Gruber. Pretty hard to remember. I'll be back in a minute. All right, so is your money... Yeah, you know, we talk about fraud. We've been talking about it this morning a lot as well. Where does your taxpayer money go? And I would say God only knows. Does it go to lobbyists, NGOs, nonprofits? Probably all of the above. My next guest is State Representative Jim Shaw from Oklahoma's 32nd House District. He's been there since 2024. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
All right, so taxpayer dollars funding lobbyists, among other things. You've been sounding the alarm. Do tell what you found.
You know, this is a systemic issue, as you know, across the country, and it's very prevalent here in Oklahoma, where you have taxpayer-funded entities that are receiving dollars from taxpayers and then lobbying some special interests, which is most of the time antithetical to the conservative base here in Oklahoma. You've got public schools that are hiring lobbyists to the tune of $80,000 or more a year to go to the Capitol, which we're only in session 4 months out of the year. You've got the Oklahoma Municipal Authority that's spending millions of dollars every single year fighting conservative legislation. And I mean, that money is not only, in my opinion, being wasted, it's being put to use against the people of Oklahoma.
Well, Oklahoma's an awfully red state, and if it's happening there, it's happening more in other places, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, we know for a fact that, I mean, a lot of states are fighting this and trying to put forth legislation to rein this in. I had a bill that would have banned taxpayer-funded lobbying, would have also worked on other bills where legislators couldn't become lobbyists immediately after leaving the Capitol, have some kind of cooling off period. None of those bills made any progress to the House floor this year. It's a systemic issue. It's a very, very big issue that the entrenched establishment is very much bent on perpetuating for their benefit and their benefit alone.
So how do you reel this in? I mean, you've got the NGOs, you've got the nonprofits, you've got the unions. Let's not forget them. They're getting money out of the pot too, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I believe the biggest way for us to combat this is to make sure that everybody's informed that this is an issue. I mean, so many people across the state and in other states across the country, they're not aware that their taxpayer dollars are being used against them and are fighting against the issues that they're passionate about. So if we make sure that we inform people and that they're aware that this is a problem, that pressure and that voice of the people coming into the building will absolutely have an impact. And I believe we can see some success going forward, especially with a new governor on the slate for us here in Oklahoma. Hopefully we've got a chance to course correct with the new governor as well.
You know, we look at fraud in Minnesota and California, but it's not unique to those states. It might be worse in those states. It might not be. What's going on in Oklahoma? What's being found there when it comes to all? I mean, look, during COVID, billions of dollars were just pumped out into the world, into the ether to end up, again, I say, God only knows where. Because there was no command and control, not at the state level oftentimes, not at the federal level, certainly locally, money's flying around as well. I mean, is there no respect for the folks, no respect for the taxpayer?
I mean, in Oklahoma, like you said, I mean, we're one of the reddest states in the country, and we continue to have extremely liberal policies being passed by our legislature. We had some bills this session that would have reined in taxpayer-funded benefits for illegals, and it stalled out in the Senate. It didn't go anywhere in the Senate. They killed that bill, and so that's the type of issues and fight that we're having here in Oklahoma with the conservative base. The vast majority of Oklahomans are conservative Republican individuals, and we have supermajority conservative or Republican held legislature in the House and the Senate, but we're not acting like it.
Why? That's going to be the simple. Why not pass a bill that says you can't give money to illegals? This is not a hard lift.
No, it's not, and especially in campaign season. I mean, you know, you've got a number of senators up for reelection. Obviously, all of us here on the House side are up for reelection, and that should be a no-brainer bill to put in front of your body to vote in favor of that, to rein that in. And quite frankly, it boils down to special interest. The special interests control the Capitol in Oklahoma, as well as many other states I know. But those special interests are diametrically opposed 99% of the time to what the people of Oklahoma want. But they come with the backing, the money, and the favors and all the promises to go along with it that these legislators seemingly have an issue combating or having to make a hard choice, if you will.
So the alleged conservatives are being bought off. That's what you're telling me. They show up with a wheelbarrow full of money, and they say, hey, if you vote for this, we'll give you money. If you don't vote for that, we'll give you money. And your campaign, and you'll win because we'll vote for you too. Whether they do or don't, who knows? But
exactly,
it's corruption. That's all that is, Jim. That's corruption by definition, is it not? If you can go buy a vote, I don't care if you're using Social Security to buy a vote at the federal level, which is all that was ever about, in my opinion. Or you can buy it at the state level. That's corruption. It's buying votes, which, by the way, is illegal in America unless you find a workaround, which they do every year, right?
Right. No, you're exactly right. It is corruption. It's favoring your special interest campaign donations to ensure your reelection over your principles and your morals and your values and your beliefs and the wishes of your constituents. And that's the issue that we have in Oklahoma. You've got the vast majority of the legislators in Oklahoma are more afraid of leadership in the building, which is beholden to special interests, than they are afraid of their voters and constituents back home. So it's all about the campaign dollars and it's all about the reelect. It's not about the values that the conservative base actually holds dear to them.
All right, so I would say, look, in Indiana, another very red state, not dissimilar to Oklahoma in its politics, when the so-called conservatives didn't do what was requested, they were all primaried out. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't that happen in Oklahoma?
So we had an issue back in 2018 where about 13 really strong conservative House members were primaried because one particular House member who was part of the establishment and leadership team ran a massive campaign fundraising effort to kick them out. And here we find ourselves having kind of gone down a path where the majority of our chamber on the House side is extremely liberal in establishment. But you're right. What I feel like we're seeing, though, last campaign cycle in this is potentially a shift where we're going to have a shift in the other direction back to a more conservative chamber, which is a good thing. And prayerfully, we'll get there this cycle.
Well, I hope you're right, Jim. I really appreciate you being here. Sun must be coming up in Oklahoma, eh?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said the sun must be coming up. Your chickens are all excited.
I thought the microphone was taking care of that background noise. Yeah, the roosters are definitely making sure we're all up and going.
They do the same thing here. I'm quite familiar to the sound, so it's all good. Real people, that's what we like here, Jim. Real people living real lives. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. There you have it. Sunrise in Oklahoma and the roosters going nuts. Yeah, we get that here. I bet my neighbors love that. But my neighbors love it when it's a little closer to his property line than it is ours. I thought about that yesterday. I chuckled to myself and went back about my business. At any rate, nice to see you. Ivy will be joining us here in a second. We're going to talk about trying to turn little boys into proper little girls. It seems to be what they want to do on the left. That's why Ritalin and all these drugs are so prevalent in America. 90% of the Ritalin in the world is prescribed in America. Let that sink in. I'll be right back. All right, jumping back into it now as we continue the conversation. This is one that we talked about a lot, Ivy and I have, and she's with me now. Ivy, good morning.
Good morning.
And that is this idea that all little boys and little girls are the same and they should just sit still in the classroom, and little boys that want to jump around or lean back on their chair, what a crime. You know how many times we've gotten called for our son? He was leaning back in his chair. He was moving around and spinning in his seat. Yeah. It's what little boys do. Let him crack his head
open. Maybe, he'll learn something.
Yeah. Anyhow, so the advent of drugs. But I want to play this for you so you understand exactly what we're talking about. Listen.
And the other thing that we're doing is to young boys. Let's talk about what we're doing to young boys. This starts very young. We basically educate young boys in a way that really favors girls. You know, from a very young age, we talk about being able to sit quietly and regulate your emotions and not be aggressive and not be impulsive. And these little boys are being diagnosed with ADHD, many of them just for being little boys. Little boys need to run around. They have a lot of physical energy. They have tons of testosterone. When you're like between 3 and 6, you have a surge of testosterone. And all you want to do is run and jump and play and be outside. And what we're doing, we're putting them in school, making them sit in circle time. So we marginalize them, we label them, we say they have a problem, we say that they have ADHD, they have behavioral problems. And in many of them, the stress that I talked about is the stress of making little boys be more like little girls.
It's so true. Classrooms are not equipped today for young men because we do, not we, you and I, but society wants, and teachers and classrooms and public education want young boys to sit still and be quiet.
Like proper little girls.
They have tremendous amount of energy. You know, they need to get out and move around. And I wonder, like, what does a classroom created for boys look like? You know, especially young boys.
Right.
Who have, just so much energy. And that's the wonderful thing about young men and men as they get older. Men just have this amazing energy about them. And they're just built different. And I think even as...
No, they're not.
We just, even as we get older, I think women forget, and men sometimes forget as well, that we are built differently. We communicate differently. The way that our emotions are very different.
Yeah, true.
And so we have to give each other grace in that regard. And how do we, Steve, what are your thoughts on just changing this in our schools? How do we educate young men better?
Well, first of all, you have to allow them to be boys and men. Allow them to run around. Don't send them to the principal's office because they're leaning back on their chair or fidgeting or spinning around or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe more exercise time. Maybe less screens. I mean, look at the disaster that screens have become.
Oh my
Here,
gosh.
little boy, sit here and stare at this screen for your education because the teacher's up at her desk on FaceTime or TikTok while you guys are supposedly getting an education from this person. She's sitting up there at her desk. And look, I'm not saying this is true of all teachers, but we heard this so many times this year that the kid would go into class, they'd watch their lesson on the, what's that thing he has, a Chromebook, right? So when tech took over education, education has failed miserably. When Big Pharma came into education, it failed miserably. These two together are a 1-2, death punch.
Sure. I do think it is extraordinarily sad that we have, medicated generations of kids because they just have a tremendous amount of energy. And there are some young ladies that are like this too.
Well, for women, the drug that they've used are antidepressants.
Yeah.
Turning them into zombies.
Right.
And we know that from people we've talked to.
And it's true for young men too.
Yeah.
They're depressed because they can't get out all of their energy. And then we're making them behave like, appropriate little girls. And then they become depressed, partly because of this. And not only the technology and all the things that they're feeling, probably not getting enough sleep because they're on their devices all night long because parents don't want to be parents. And then we medicate them and then they have no feelings at all.
And then, we medicate them into being zombies. After we've labeled them, as that woman said, you label them as being this or that or 80. Look,
exactly.
Get them off the damn drugs. We know a young woman who was put on antidepressants. She said, I didn't feel anything.
That's right.
Didn't feel anything.
Well, that's what people don't
told
understand about these SSRIs is
Right.
that it limits your serotonin release.
Correct.
So like when your serotonin is supposed to be released in a happy setting, it doesn't do it. So when you're supposed to be excited and happy, you don't feel excited and happy.
Yeah, you don't feel depressed. You don't feel
but
anything.
You don't, exactly. But you feel less sad. But I think a lot of people who we've talked to who have gone through this sort of thing say that I didn't feel really any different. I actually felt worse.
Yeah, and in fact, that's true.
So, are there some circumstances that this might benefit someone? Perhaps. But as ubiquitous as many people as are using it, probably not.
Yeah.
So
get off the drugs.
Absolutely.
Protect your children. Let boys be boys and let girls be girls. It's a pretty simple equation that's worked for humanity since the beginning of time. I'm glad we had this conversation, Ivy. Love you.
I love you, Steve.
And look, stop looking for the easy way out. Well, the teachers got too much chaos in the classroom. They always have. My mother taught 5th grade. Trust me, chaos. Anyhow, final thoughts after this. Well, how about we leave this on a positive note here today? Yeah. Coors Light. Coors Light. You know, they've done all sorts of things with their can. They have a can that shows you that it's cold or it's warm or whatever. They do all that. The Silver Bullet. Well, the Silver Bullet just got 3 times longer. Yeah, the 36-ounce taller boys. 36-ounce, yeah, right there it is. Taller boys. It's like a missile.
I'll take 100.
Have you seen this, Anthony?
Actually, Sarah, Sister Sarah sent it to me.
Yeah.
Just a few minutes ago.
The Coors Call. The taller boy is everything. Stands for brought to life in physical form, said Matt Carpenter, Vice President of Marketing at Coors Light. Extra long celebrations deserve something that allows you to hold onto those gay moments a little longer. And Taller Boy does exactly that. 3 cans, 1 canister, a whole lot of extra.
Isn't Coors spelled out longer on the can?
It is.
Of course.
Yeah, it is. It's got like 27 O's in it. Yeah. Coors Light. Ooh. Anyhow, it'll be a tailgating extravaganza. They come in 3-packs. Not 6-packs. A case of Taller Boys, you'd need a dolly to get it out of the store. 36-ounce beers, just what America needed, right? Are you thrilled, Anthony? Are you thrilled? Yeah. Yeah. And why is Sister Sarah perusing beer before 9 o'clock in the morning?
I don't know. We might need to talk to her about that one.
we may speak.
Well,
Sarah?
it's legal to buy beer now.
Yeah.
What, 7 a.m. I think it's when you start, at least here in Michigan.
I'm going to call in a DoorDash to the studio for you, Brock.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. 36-ounce beers. All right, there you have it. That's where I leave it. Soccer fans.
We may be selling that at the ballpark here soon. Who knows?
Almost for sure. It's a novelty. Anyhow, fight the good fight, keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is Daybreak, and remember, only you can save America.